Hey everybody, I'm going to tell you an awesome story, but first a little background. The San Francisco Bay Area is a great place to live if you're a kiteboarder. In the springtime, the winds howl down the coast and make for awesome waves. And in the summertime, the winds hook onto the Golden Gate Bridge and curve through the north end of the bay before gradually bending westward into the Sacramento Delta region. If you live north of the Golden Gate Bridge like I do, there's a magical spot called the Brickyard that blows on certain special days when the winds come from the south and there's enough water to fill the small bay in San Rafael. Good days look like this. When it's sunny and warm, it's a good place to hang out and have a beer. But when the tide goes out and the winds die, you better make sure you've got your kite off the water. The crew that hangs at the Brickyard has long theorized, often over several beers, that it would be possible on the right day, with the right tide and the right wind conditions, to get on your board and ride all the way across San Pablo Bay and then hook a right to shoot under the Carquinez Bridge. We've all driven over the Carquinez Bridge and it looks sufficiently high to make it under with a kite. From there you could cut across the Carquinez Straits that's known for fluky currents and strange tides, weird wind, but from there you'd make it to the Benicia Bridge. And if you could get under Benicia Bridge, and in particular the very short train trestle, it could be smooth sailing out into Grizzly Bay. From there it would just be a short hop across Sassoon Bay, and eventually you would arrive at the world-renowned kiteboarding mecca known as Sherman Island. Sherman Island has warm, fresh water and some of the most consistent winds in the United States that blow steadily from midsummer all the way through fall. If you look at the Bay Area on the map, you'll see that Sherman Island is just 42 miles on the shortest path from the Brickyard. How hard could it be to kite 42 miles all downwind? We're about to figure this out, me and my three buddies. Oh, I got the camera.
She's gonna do before and after. We're all smiles before, and then we're all.
So Sammy, what do you think?
I think it's good.
It's good?
It's all good.
All right, Sherman Island, here we come.
Can I throw these in the back here, man?
Yeah.
Photo time. I don't know who's taking photos, but I'm smiling at all the cameras.
Actually, let me get this off so I look more macho.
Yeah, way more macho now. So these are the four guys that started on this crazy adventure, and spoiler alert, they don't all make it to the end. We had all kited the day before, and the conditions on Saturday looked to be just about right, and were supposed to hold until Sunday. The tides were going to come up and the winds were going to come up at just about 1 o'clock in the afternoon and were projected to hold steady. To start, the conditions were questionable. We had to slog through 2 inches of water to get out to where it was deep enough to kite, and even then we were almost to the point before there was enough wind and enough water to foil out across the tip of the bay. Once we started downwind, it was pretty quickly clear that we were not going to be able to get back up to where we left, so we were committed from that point on. Now, 2 of us, Dave and Ben, were on foils, but I just wasn't comfortable enough with my foiling skills to try 3 or 4 hours on a foil, so I opted to take my surfboard. I tried Dave's foil for about 10 minutes, and that was enough to convince me that I had made the right call. I would not have made it on a foil.
All right, little San Pablo Bay. About cam behind us.
It was a beautiful day on the bay. You could see all the mountains surrounding it. Now, because I was on a surfboard, I figured these guys on foils would blow by me, but it turns out that sometimes slow and steady does all right, keeping up with these guys on their high-speed foils. These guys covered a lot more ground zigzagging on their foils, but I found that I was able to pretty much go straight downwind. I had rigged a 12 meter figuring that it would better to have too much kite than too little. And it turns out that for a downwinder, too much kite is way better than too little kite. We had not been on the water for too long before, meanwhile, back at the beach, word of our adventure and eventual demise had started to spread. This far into the trip, the sailing had been pretty smooth. We had nice little rollers and we're just cruising along downwind.
Breather. Take a little rest. Alright, time to get back on it. What's that? Yeah.
At this point in the trip, we had already lost our first member. Paul had rigged a 10-meter kite, figuring he would be better to have a smaller kite when we got into the delta and the winds were blowing 25 miles an hour. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it off the beach, and by the time he turned around to go back and pump up a kite and then get back out, we decided that we'd better get moving or we were going to lose the wind and tide. Back on the beach, Paul was applauded for his wisdom. About this time, we'd pretty much crossed San Pablo Bay and were coming up on Mare Island. And then from there, we were going to shoot under the Carquinez Bridge. Now, we had done a little homework the night before, got on Google Earth, kind of checked out the map and tried to see where we might get out if we needed to self-rescue at any point on the trip. About now, things started to get a little ominous. We could see the bridge up ahead, and we weren't really sure what the conditions were going to be like up into this part of the bay. I figured that as the wind narrowed through the straits under the bridge, it would get really windy on the other side of the bridge, so I was ready to hold on tight and be blasted from tons of wind.
Very cool. It's a little light.
Okay, it turns out that the winds on the other side of the bridge were not howling as I thought.
This is what you get for screwing around with your camera when you should be concentrating on the wind.
I could not get enough wind to get my kite back in the air, but somehow Dave on his foil was able to come around behind my kite and flip the wingtip high enough into the air that it shot up, and finally I was up and riding again.
Thank you, David. Save the day. Yeah, Liz. I figured it'd be howling through here.
It's a good time to introduce the most important member of our team, Kelly. who agreed to drive to Sherman Island and pick us up if and when we made it. These are some pictures she took as we passed underneath the bridge, and of course she let everybody else know that we had somehow survived this far.
All right, I'm up and riding again. Wind's a little better. Woo! Oh, funky, oh, funky. Ah. Well, in Give me a nice house on the water in Benicia.
All right, passing through Benicia, the bridge was behind us and the winds had cleared up. It was pretty much all smooth sailing from here to Sherman Island.
All right. We're in Benicia and we're all stuck in the water with not enough wind. Come on, wind. What? I said, come on, wind. The tide's taking us around this island into these death poles.
I guess we're swimming in, eh?
What do you think? Yeah, I mean, it's probably not a... How long, much more than before we self-rescue? The wind's taking us towards that kite. How you doing, Ben? Your little 8's gonna get up way before my big ass 10. Look at that. What's your name?
Gary.
Gary, thank you, Gary.
Almost.
Woo.
One more.
That was quite a swim. All right, and then, woo.
So clearly that didn't go so well. We were in the water heading towards the pier in Benicia, and all we could see in front of us were rocks and pilings and pier stems. So we were debating self-rescuing. Then a puff of wind came and Dave and Ben were able to get their kites back in the air, but I couldn't get mine up, so I figured I'd better self-rescue before I hit the pier. I had lost my board at one time and was just floating with the kite, figuring the board was gone. I tried to reel in the lines and swim in as best I could, and somehow, miraculously, the board blew back to me and I was able to get on and swim like hell to make it around the rocks and get over to the beach where Gary, a fellow sailor, saw us and helped me get my foot freed, which had been tangled up by the lines.
Sorted out. Like, I made it in. Shot the channel and... Yeah. Alright. We made it as far as Benicia and the wind turned to crap.
think you saw the little fiasco at the beach. Now, it's wind's picked up quite a bit, so we're gonna try to go the rest of the way. We will make it to Sherman Island, one way or another. All right, how's it been so far?
Great. Been good.
Yeah.
Time to go again.
All we need is wind.
We need wind.
Wind's all it takes.
Do it.
All right, no more screwing up, okay?
Here we go.
All right, let's do it. If you look closely under the bridge, you'll see Ben trying to make the first attempt to get underneath it. A fluky gust of wind grabbed Ben's kite and blew it up into the bottom of the bridge, which then knocked it out of the sky and it started to drop like a stone. Fortunately, Ben caught it right before it hit the water and kept on going through. Up ahead, I could see Dave getting ready to take his pass. He had decided to get off his foot and just ride it out in the water with the kite overhead. With 3 different bridges, there were 3 sets of piers, and so it was tricky to find a path through where we could keep jibing with the wind.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So, like Ben, Dave caught a fluky gust of wind that blew his kite up into the bridge and it smacked it, but fortunately nothing too bad happened. I had the benefit of watching both of those guys go through, so I was able to keep my kite pretty low and avoid hitting the bridge, but later we did the math and found out that the bridge was exactly 22 meters high, which was the length of the lines that both Dave and Ben were using. I was on 20-meter lines, so I might not have hit it if I had have gotten up high enough. Woo, that felt a little sketchy. So the wind was feeling pretty good in this part of the bay, but we knew this was in some ways the sketchiest part because if we'd have gone down, we would have landed in the Grizzly Island Wildlife Preserve, which basically had no roads in or out. So I'm kiting along and I suddenly look up to see Dave waist deep in water hiking his foil board out to find somewhere deep enough to kite. I had no idea that Sassoon Bay could be so shallow, but it turns out there's a big sandbar in the middle of the bay. Gorgeous out here! Absolutely gorgeous! This is one of the few clips I actually managed to get of Ben on the water. At this point, we figured it was all pretty much smooth sailing. We knew we had the delta winds at our back and the tide was in our favor and there wasn't too many obstacles in front of us. Woo!
coming down the home stretch. At Sherman Island, about a mile or two ahead.
Other than the burning in my legs, this part was a lot of fun. Just straight downwind, got to practice a lot of kite loops. We may not have had a chase boat, but we did bring cell phones with us, so we weren't complete idiots. At this point, I'd been on the water a lot longer than expected, and people were starting to check in, wondering if we had made it. Here's a shot Kelly grabbed from the beach of us coming down the home stretch.
Oh, don't tell me. I may not have recorded that whole end of session. Oh well. Today, you remember how to walk?
I know.
Woo. Get in here, Kelly.
Come on in, Kelly. Come on in, Lord. How cool is this? Well, not possible without you. Like a blarky too. Take her out. Come here, boy. Queen Land.
That was awesome, guys.
Yes, it was.
Woo. Man, okay, I don't think I'm gonna do that anytime soon.
Like once next weekend.
Oh, okay, if the wind's right.
We'll start from OB.
Yeah.